Hello world, hello world. I am still Cam, last time I checked, and this is still the Real Resilience Talk podcast. This is going to be episode 79, my friends, and I appreciate y'all for tuning in and listening. I didn't mean for that to rhyme, but bars. Okay, we got a great guest today. We're going to talk about resilience. I want to say up front, we are not doctors. Nothing I say or do is a reflection of the official organization, to include the Department of War, the Department of Defense, or anything else. So don't try to get me canceled, okay? These are just Americans using our First Amendment to express ourselves and talk about the subject of resilience and learn something from a really cool person who is just an advocate for the community, mission, service, and impact at scale. And I'll let him explain that. But ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people all over the universe, welcome to the show, Mr. Luke Mickelson.
Am I supposed to clap?
I don't know. I just do it. I don't know. Yeah.
Cam, thanks for having me, brother.
You're very welcome, and thank you for your time, my friend, for being here with us, brother. You are doing amazing things. Ladies and gentlemen, y'all don't understand Mr. Luke here. He's a humble cat, but let me tell you, man, this dude has been on the CNN Heroes, NBC Nightly News, on the Today Show, Home of Family with Strahan, Sara, and Keke, okay, returning the favor with Rowe. This man has been places. He's doing big things, and I wish that you were around when I was a little kid getting evicted, so it would have been real nice, but we made a whole lot of pallets, so... I'll say, yeah, if you know, you know, right? But just until we got on our feet, we just never seem to do that. Anyway, just until we got on our feet. Thank you again for being here. I want to ask you first, man, what is resilience to you? And then you can explain your background and my little reference to pallets. Over.
That's right. We'll get there, I'm sure.
Yes,
no,
sir.
Seriously, Cam, thanks for having me on. This is the number one. Thanks for being a podcaster, right? Someone that's not afraid to share his voice, share the voices of others. You kind of mentioned it in your intro, which is, I had a podcast a long time ago, and it was very short lived during COVID to keep the troops happy.
That's
but
right.
we do. It's unfortunate nowadays that we do have to worry about some of those outlying voices that are there just to make trouble, when we're really just here to share good messages, uplifting thought and inspiration. Resilience to me is part of that. We all have moments, and I'm going to share with you my moments where they're real, right? We're human freaking beings, and we all experience the same thing in one form or another, right? Some are a little harder than others, some are a little easier, but ultimately we all go through the same type of emotions and the same type of struggles. Resilience comes from learning how to overcome those things. Quite often, Cam, we need help with those.
Yes.
I have a mantra of humans helping humans. That's what we're about, right? And that doesn't involve race or political affiliation, or even religious affiliation. Gosh dang it, we're just humans helping humans.
That's it.
When you get down to the core of that, right? Does it really matter? I mean, if you got a problem over here, someone's working over there, we're only on this blue dot once.
That's
and
yeah.
And
to my knowledge, one time. That's all you
get.
Yeah,
as far as I know.
Until I figure out otherwise, yeah.
Unless we come back as grasshoppers, then we're
YOLO. Yeah. I'll be a
So-
pretty butterfly.
That's right. I'll take it. So resilience to me is just that, I think it's overcoming, however you get there, overcoming some everyday problems, right?
Yes.
We have to be resilient with who we are and who we stand for. I shared this not too long ago on another podcast, and I don't share it very often, but I think it's very important to me. One of the most important things in life is just learning to be honest with yourself. Right? That is damn hard. It's extremely hard because, we don't want to face our own demons, and we don't want to face what we know inside especially when people bring things up, we already know it. That usually strikes the hardest chord, right? Mm-hmm. And emotional maturity is just learning to be honest with yourself. And I think when you finally do that and you can face that, and I work on it every single day.
Every single day, we got to work on it. That's what we do. It's every single day. That's right. You are good. Hey, but I really got to tell y'all what he's doing out there. The organization is Sleep in Heavenly Peace. You can look that up on www.shpbeds.org. So shpbeds.org. You got to look him up. You got to look at what Luke's doing. He's literally giving people a place to not only grow, but to rest.
I think that's working on yourself and working on and being okay with even the mistakes and the things that you go through in life that are trials, things in your character that you have to work on, and you're not going to perfect. Maybe you will, but learning resilience over those and relying on others is not a weakness.
Amen.
I've learned that through my life, especially as I've helped other people and had to help myself, which always seems embarrassing, but they're all about, when we break it down to the smallest degree, the reality of our life is, again, we're just here to help each other, and asking for help, receiving help, giving help. It's all part of it. It's all part of the big ball we call life and game, and so resilience plays. It's an adjective to the things that we deal with, a verb when we feel like we have to act, right?
Yes.
So
I love that, and I love that just expression of it, and I love the emphasis on it's okay to ask for help, and also that humans helping humans. That's what it's all about. Because this is why I look at it, Luke, and I said this many times on the show, is that you look back in history. I don't care what you believe in, theology, geology. You could worship algebra. Don't care. That's your right. However, you look back in anything, any religious text, anything throughout history, philosophers, nobody ever does nothing on their own. It's always in the help of other humans. And even when there is a deity that comes through, right, it's usually working through humans, helping other humans.
Yep.
Like it or not, we all we got, is what I used to always say to the Marines I serve with and the sailors I serve with. Just like, you can like it or not, but we're all we got. So let's try to make the best of this.
Right. Exactly right. Yep.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful expression of resilience. We need it. It matters, and you're so right that it's an adjective, a verb, a noun. Man, it's all of the above. Yeah,
right.
It's all of the above. So thank you for that. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
and so background.
Yeah.
What you want to share?
Yeah,
I'm not going to pull your credit report or anything. I just, tell me more about yourself. Yeah.
If you do, there might be a little more than you want to know. I don't know. No, listen, man, I tell everybody, I'm just a farm kid from Idaho, right? Plain and simple. Regular Joe. I grew up in a small town, and those that have grown up in a small town know exactly what I'm talking about, right? The pros and cons are the exact same thing, which is I know everybody and all their business, and they know me and all my business, right? You love it and you hate it. I was in a school of only about 300 people, and that's grades 9 through 12. My graduating class was 69 kids, right? You not only knew everybody, but you knew their brothers and sisters and their moms and dads and their dogs. And, it's just one of those things. But the beautiful thing about living in that small town, and it's something you don't know when you grow up. You don't know that you're learning these things and you're developing these things, part of your character, is, you have this sense of camaraderie. You have this sense of support that you just needed to provide. When Joe over here, an underclassman, or Susie, an older classman, when you see him on the side of the road, you see him in the garage or the gas station or whatever, you just say hi and how's it going. When someone's pulled off the side of the road, you just stop and, hey, what's going on? Like, do you need any help? And that's just the world we grew up in a small town, Idaho. My mom was a single mom too. My parents divorced just before high school started for me, right? So I was a little older, but starting to go through those really mature stages of life, age of life. And my dad was, he was a good dude. Don't get me wrong, he's a good dude. He just wasn't around much. So really, my mom raised us 5 kids, and so the part of that really hones in on, as you later look back, hones in on what built you as a person, you can be very grateful for. At the time, it was a little rough, right? When my parents divorced, I remember even that Christmas following the divorce, boy, I knew that my mom, 3 jobs, 5 kids, probably not going to have much for Christmas, and that's okay, right? Mm-hmm. But this is where the community jumps in. Right. This is where, when you walk out to the mailbox like I did, and you open up the mailbox and there's an envelope that's got $1,500 in cash, you know where that comes from. That's part of the community coming together and supporting. And when you're sitting there, and this is kind of what I talked about earlier. When you're in the position of receiving, I just remember, Cam, that I was like, you know what, I just hope when I can, I will, and that's my commitment. Just like when I couldn't, someone did for me. And I always want to live kind of by that mantra, and I think that's important. And I'm so glad that happened to me. I wasn't super glad at the time, going through some rough patches, and economically for a single parent of 5 kids can be challenging. But as you may know, but going down the road, looking back, it's what built your character.
Mm-hmm.
It's what built who you are. And so now, 30 years later, or whatever, when I'm 35, sitting in in my life and career, I got a great job, I'm making good money. I've got a family and coaching football, doing that, all that, and then in church service. I mean, on paper, I had a great life, right? But it's really funny. I think when you hit those levels, that age, at least for me, people call it a midlife crisis, and I never felt like I was going through any sort of midlife crisis. I don't know, maybe that's what they call it, but for me, it wasn't a crisis of being in midlife. It was a crisis of, number one, I started questioning, what was most important in life. I grew up with a single mom, like I said, who was, man, you go to college, you get a good job, you make good money, so you're not, quote, ending up in the same situation she's in, right? Poor and that was great, right? But then you go through life with this thought, this lesson that you learn from your mom and everybody else too, that success is based on something financially. Right. And I remember thinking my success was based on the number of zeros behind my paycheck, or the number of toys that I had in the garage, and what people thought of me when it come to that stuff. And I don't know, I hit this stage in life where I was like, that doesn't seem like that even matters. It's important in the fact that I want to support my family, but who really cares? And that opens up a lot of other questions, and I started having, I guess the only crisis I felt like I had was a faith crisis, right? I grew up in a religion and followed it to the T. I was a good following Christian boy, right? And then you just doubted. I started realizing what's important to me, and there's things that I had questions about, and that was okay to question, and it was okay to look for my own answers and go through this life with maybe a different perspective than others. Because again, on paper, I was great, right? I think most people would have killed to have a situation that I was in, and that actually brought a lot of guilt too. Right, a lot of guilt that I felt this way.
I don't deserve to be unhappy. I don't deserve to not be satisfied. That is so real. Thank you for being real. Off the top, you're keeping it so real, and thank you.
I don't know any other way to be, Cam.
You gotta say these things, man.
I think
so many others are you said that midlife crisis is like midlife clarity, and
yeah,
they're silent about it, or they try to fill the void with other things. And I think that's where the chasing of oh, you got this brand new sports car, whatever the thing is. No diss on anybody. You earn what you earn, do what you do, but to have this moment of clarity that you have, and to be like, I also have doubt. That's real, man. And that's where you feel guilty for feeling bad. And then now it's like this self-licking ice cream cone of just depression. So I didn't mean to cut you off, but it's so important that you're real about it. And that's why you on the CNN Heroes and the NBC Nightly News. Now I'm starting to smell what you're stepping in.
Gotcha. Well, it can be stinky sometimes, but
but it's real. It's real.
But it's real, baby.
It's great. It's organic.
That's right, and it's on my shoe, and I'm going to step there. It's funny. I love what you say. It is a crisis of clarity. I do like that, Cam. I'm going to use that if you don't mind, because
now you have it. Sure.
Yeah, I think because that's what it is, right? Clarity. Is different for people. It's different from each person. I mean, if we're all focused in on the same thing. I focus in on helping children with beds. If everybody had the same passion and intensity and purpose, then there's so many other parts of our lives that would be, left destitute and without. And so, clarity to me and for me and success meant something different to me than other people, and that's fine. But for me, I was in this environment when all of this happened to me, right? And what happened was kind of a unique story. So, when I back then I served in my church calling, they called it, or a position. It was called a young men's president. And what that did was I was responsible for the spiritual growth as well as the activity arm of the church, the boys in the church, ages about 12 to 17, right? So, and the activities that we did, the church adopted the Boy Scouts. So basically, I was I was the leader of the Boy Scouts, right? I wasn't the scout master, but I was over him, if you will, and he reported to me, and then I would report, up to the leadership of the church. Well, part of this position as well is you'd attend these meetings with the other leaders, and you'd talk about what's going on in your pipeline, if you will, what's going on in the community, the people that we were helping. And it was in these meetings that I learned something. Now, we started talking about families we were helping, and one family particular caught my ear. And it happened because, listen, man, since I was 6 years old, I've been riding my bike around this town for my whole life. I thought I knew every inch of this town. But this family lived in an apartment complex I didn't even know existed. That's how remote it was. Like, I didn't even know it was an apartment complex. And then this leader that went into the home were talking about things, they're kind of surveying what the family needed. Because, they did that often, provide food or clothes or rides to school or whatever the family needed. Well, this leader was kind of going through this, right? Oh, the mom was the local school bus driver. Dad had suffered from some mental health, so he didn't provide like I'm sure he wanted to. So they were struggling, and they needed rides to school. The kids didn't have any beds. They needed shoes, and I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Did you just say the kids don't have any beds? And she says, yeah. And I thought, just like everybody probably right now is thinking, well, certainly they're sleeping on like mattresses, right? They might be on the floor, but they're on mattresses. And she says, no, they're just on a hardwood floor with blankets and a pillow.
Called a pallet.
Yeah, or a pallet, which I've seen.
Yes.
I had never even thought about that. I mean, I know kids sleeping on the floor for fun, and that happens all the time, right?
Over and everything like that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, they build forts and sleep on the ground, right? You and I just wake up stiff as a board, but
for sciatica reasons, but they do that. Sometimes kids got to do it out of it's the necessity of the situation.
They don't have a choice, right? And so it just really shocked me that really in my own hometown we've got kids. Oh yeah, no. So I thought of two things, right? I thought of my kids. I thought of my own kids. I had kids, 6, 7, 10 years old, and I thought, what would it be like for them to sleep on the floor, day in and day out? That would suck, right? And then I thought about which every teenage leader that's over a teenage group can relate to this. In this day and age, it's hard to find an activity that doesn't involve a screen or a computer game or something like that and have these kids enjoy it, right? And so I thought, Cam, this is a great opportunity to get an Xbox controller out of these boys' hands and put a drill in it, right? And teach these boys something, right? So we're going to kill a couple of birds with one stone here. And so I got really excited. I went home that night after the meeting and went down with tape measure and pencil and paper in hand to my daughter's bunk bed she had downstairs, and I just started whipping out measurements and writing notes down. And the next thing you knew, I came up with this good plan on how to build this bunk bed. And I had to make it easy because, number one, I'd never built furniture in my life. And if truth be told, I kind of had to borrow my wife's tools to do this. Now, I say that.
I have to do that often, so you are not
okay, brother. All right, we may have lost our dad card, but we're there, right? Yeah. But I said, and I wasn't a stranger to saws and drills and stuff, but I figured it out, and I had to make it easy because these boys were going to come over this week, and we were going to build this bunk bed, and that's what they did. So they showed up Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday night. It took a couple of 3 nights to get this bunk bed done, and I was so excited because the boys just loved it. I mean, I don't know who doesn't love playing with power tools, but to be able to have a chance to talk to these boys and tell them what they're doing. You might be helping a classmate that doesn't have a bed. What would it be like if you didn't have a bed? Just helping them relate, and you could see the wheels turning. And the funny thing was, as they listened and went back and told their families, who probably told their friends, and the next thing you know, Saturday night came to deliver this bed. Dude, there's like 20, 30 people showed up to help deliver this bed to this small tube. Oh yeah, dude. I was like, well, we can't have an army going over here, guys. So
we heard there ain't no beds over here. Oh my God, I brought in the cavalry.
Yeah, that's right. And there's a sense of dignity you need to kind of respect here, right?
Right, for sure.
And so I was like, I'll stay back, and a couple leaders stayed back. I had to clean my garage anyways. I mean, this was like first part of December in Idaho in an unheated garage. Not exactly a tropical warm place to be in, right? Yeah. So I had to clean the garage up. Well, the next day at church, they came back and they just talked about how awesome it was, right? This family, the kids were super excited to get beds, and and I think these Boy Scouts, these boys saw the conditions that they had to have seen the conditions these kids were sleeping in, and the situation, and that, like me, probably did something to them, right? They shared it with me. The parents shared it with me. It's like, I'd never built furniture in my life, but hey, the bed didn't fall apart, so there's win one. Right?
Yeah, right, exactly, yeah.
But the cool thing happened internally to me that no one knew this was going on in Luke's mind and heart, right? Was it just filled it. That emptiness, that unfulfillment, that clarity appeared, I should say, right? Yeah. And it was there, and I just felt it, and it was so awesome. And it was like, this is the passion for something that I've been looking for a long time. The sad reality was, it was done. We had delivered the bed. We'd solved the problem. And the next couple of nights, I could just feel, it's funny how life just kind of creeps back in, right? And you just fall right back into the same rut, right? And I could feel that happening. And I didn't like it. I knew that was me. I think I loved your analogy, the depression of licking a lollipop, right? Or an ice cream cone, however you said it. Yeah. It's just over and over and over. It's just a big cycle. And when you're in the middle of it and you feel this just stair step down into this, hole, no matter how many pep talks I gave, which helped sometimes, but it was just a delay into the inevitable, I'm going to fall in this hole again. I'm sitting on the couch. Me and my kids were watching Big Bang Theory, 2012, right?
We got it on Prime. No.
That's right, baby.
Original airings of this.
That's right. This is Sheldon Live, baby. But so I'm sitting on this couch with my kids, and we're watching this program. Well, a commercial comes on. And I don't even remember. It's some sort of game or controller or something with the Xbox, whatever. And every parent goes through this period of before Christmas that you just dread, where things come on, your kids want these games or these toys. They know you're not going to buy for them, right? Because they're either way expensive or they already have. And they knew it, right? And so when it came on and they turned and looked at me, I was like, Don't you dare ask. And sure enough, no fault to theirs, right? They're just kids.
Marketing, capitalism, you gotta love it.
That's right, yeah. Dad's rich. He knows what he's doing, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And so it just hit me that it just hit me perfectly, right? I'm going through this internal turmoil. No one knows about it. I'm just fighting these demons. And then I just built this bed for this child, and I filled it all up, and it was so awesome. And now I'm dropping down, and now my kids want a new Xbox, and they've got a bed. These other kids, it was just this. You can see this tidal wave of emotion, and dude, Cam, the next thing you know, stood up, didn't say a word, just turned and walked to the garage. And my kids are like, Dad, where are you going? The program's on, right? And I turned to him and I said, you know what? I got leftover wood. I'm going to build another bunk bed, and you're going to come help me.
Man, look, you know what it is? You know what just hit me? Like, for real? Like, your clarity led to compassion and action. Compassion and action. And to your point of what you were talking about before about, how you grew up, like, you only know what you know. Like anyone in the whole world, you only know what you know. And sometimes we take things, it's like our thumbs, right? Like we wouldn't be able to hold a cup, right, without our thumb. Lose your thumb and see how much you appreciate your thumb.
Yeah,
or
100%.
People that don't have a thumb, you'd be like, dang, they can't grip nothing, and that's a harsh reality. So, and the analogy of it is just, it shows so much, if y'all out there listening, how much it matters. And I'm stealing this from a mentor of mine, because nothing's really original, but he coined this, and there's no narcissism here, but this is how I remembered it. Connection, authenticity, and meaning. You created something that had meaning, something that made people doing it. Those young men you had in the garage and those cold conditions where the sawdust just sticks to you kind of thing, right?
Yep.
And you connected that connection, and, we're all doing something together that creates connection. And then it's the authenticity where they're able to do something that's authentically them. And it's compassion and action. And the guy I quoted for the connection, authenticity, meaning is what's so important for all of us, is a great veteran now. He has a TEDx talk, but his name's Garrett Biss. But that's what it reminded me of. You created that. You took the Xbox control. Nobody's saying video games are all bad, everybody, okay?
Not saying
but
that.
It's just like, if that's all you do, bruh, sister, it's probably not going to turn out too good. But to find something else to do with and have that outward, it just... I just wanted to emphasize that you did that through your moment of clarity of going, I need something more. I need something that matters, and I need something that's in service to others. So, and then it's the the contagion, right? Because bad things are contagious, thinking is contagious, but also good things are too, and you created that. So I don't want to stop the story. I just wanted to highlight that. Right?
No, thank you.
Right there.
Well, I think no, you bring up a very good point that I share quite a bit. In fact, I do a lot of my inspirational speaking and keynote speaking on tiny moments, right? Mm-hmm. And for me, that was one of those tiny moments, right? We all have them. They're moments of inspiration that just sometimes come out of nowhere, right? And I'm just as guilty as everybody can. We dismiss these tiny moments far too often, right? I'm too busy. I don't know how to do that. Someone else is taking care of it.
That's right.
It's just we sit on the couches and make all sorts of excuses. And I've thought about this quite a bit. What? Everybody wants to change, especially for the good. And I'm sitting on this couch wanting to change, talking to myself, pep talking, blah blah blah. All these things we want to transform ourselves. So why don't we? Right? So what is it about it? And I've learned, for me anyways, and I think it rings true for most people. Your desire to change is one thing. Your desire to act to change has to be higher, right? And why that's important is because I think we all as human beings sit here and I want to change, and you have this desire to change, and you think that's all you need. No.
Sheep, action speak.
It's right. That's right. And so we spend a lot of time reading books, motivational books and stuff like that, because we want to motivate ourselves to change. Okay, that's great. Yeah, that's part of it. But what we need to spend probably a little more time on is our motivation to act, right? What do I need to do to change? Let's think about that. Let's read about that. Let's work on that. For me, I was just dang lucky that I know I wanted to change. That was the internal struggle that I was fighting for years. Well, there was now I had my kids. I could see them not appreciating things they should, not enjoying, not finding joy in service. All of these things built my act to change much greater than my feeling and desire to act became much greater than my desire to change. That's what got me off the couch. That's what I realized. I was walking to the garage and was like, yes, I don't give two what it's going to take to get out in this garage and have my kids come help me. I don't care about temperature. I don't care about time. I don't care whatever. Get out here, right? And that's what we did. And now because of that, I mean, I've got pictures with my daughter in her little pink tutu hammering away, and my son in his favorite Boise State jersey drilling screws in wood. We had a great time, right? And it was just beautiful, just me and the kids working on this together, right? And the funny thing was, Cam, it had nothing to do per se with child bedlessness, because I didn't even know that was a problem. I didn't know another child that was sleeping on the floor. This was more about getting my kids to appreciate the joys of service and giving back and appreciate the things that they had, right? Yes. But now that I'm done, now that we got this bunk bed built, what do you do with it? I mean, I didn't know, right? Yeah. And so at the time, my wife at the time said, well, why don't you throw it on Facebook Buy, Sell, Trade, one of those sites. Now, this is 2012, guys. I didn't even know what that was. Number one, I had to go join one. I didn't know what that meant. And so I did so, right? A couple of things happened that was pretty surprising to me. Number one, I started having people comment on this post that I didn't even know who they were, right? They were just complete strangers, which was kind of new to me. I know that seems weird nowadays. I'm on Buy, Sell, Trade all the time, and that's totally normal. But back then, I didn't know how it really worked, right? And I was like, well, who's John Jefferson here? I don't know. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, I was getting from friends that I hadn't talked to for 25 years, people I graduated with were hitting me up. And that was one surprising. And the second thing was, why? And obviously, they had read the post, and they were commenting on the post. They knew kids, Cam, that were sleeping on the floor. All of them. And the conditions they were sleeping in, on pallets, on hardwood cement floors in basements, 3 or 4 to a bed, or with mom and dad, or on a couch, or on an air mattress, which we all know how it turns out in the morning, right?
Yeah, you just sleep a little lopsided a little bit.
Or flat, right, when it's done. Yeah. it just shocked me that there was this many kids and in these situations. And so I got pretty excited because I had a bunk bed that I wanted to give. And, and I was pretty proud of it. It was really meant something to me personally because it was my kids and I. And,
That's right. Yeah.
And so I wanted this to go to
We
a...
did this.
Correct,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
And I wanted them to feel and know and have a good story to share. And they were all worthy, don't get me wrong. But I had a friend of mine call me up. I served a mission with her, and she says, "Hey, Luke, have you delivered that bed yet?" And I said, "No." And she worked in the social services sector. She helped transitioning homelessness and people and whatnot. And she says, "Well, I got a family." And this is my Haley story. So Haley was a 6-year-old girl that had never slept on a bed. She had only slept in the backseat of her mom's car. They were homeless, right? And I'm sure she couch dived here and there, right? But the only bed she knew that was hers was the backseat of her mom's car. So I got pretty excited because my friend helped him get a house, right? And so when I showed up, right, and I'd seen poverty before. I'd seen homelessness, transition homelessness, foster care, things of that nature. But when I walked into this house, I kind of walked in looking through the lens of a 6-year-old, right, with the eyes of a 6-year-old. And that was shocking to me because, as you can imagine, there was nothing in the house. There was no couch to watch cartoons or TV or table to eat cereal. I mean, there was nothing. There was one of those milk crates, that had a hot plate on it that had a can of soup on it. That was it, right? And so you're sitting there thinking, this would be hard for anybody to live in these conditions, let alone little Haley here, right? And I remember leaning down. I said, "Haley, why don't you show me your bedroom?" And she was all sorts of excited, right? She had a bedroom, for crying out loud, right? So she pulls me back into her room, and you can imagine what this looked like, right? It was holes in the carpet, tears in the wallpaper, no closet door, used toys everywhere, right? But the most shocking thing about the room was in the corner was a pile of clothes, and that's where Haley slept. So this little girl had come home from school. She'd put her PJs on, sleep on her school clothes. I mean, I'm talking shirt for a pillow, pants for sheets, and then in the morning put them on and go to school, right? And that just wrecked me. I mean, I'm supposed to be this big, strong football playing Idaho, outdoors kid, and I'm just doing my best to keep it together. I still choke up talking about it, and I've told the story 1,000 times, and then sitting on that bed with her, or I should say. I got upset at first, right? Mm-hmm. I was like, my gosh, not in my town. What's going on here, right? Yeah. And that quickly changed to excitement because we had a bed for her. And she didn't know why we were there, but we started bringing in these pieces of bed and putting it together. And I was kind of watching her to see how she reacted. And all of a sudden, once she realized it was a bed, she just blew. I mean, it was Christmas morning, right? This is like excitement that you expect your little daughter to have when she gets the one thing she wants, right? And she just ran over. She hugged these two strange dudes in her room, right? And then went hugged and then did something I'd never seen before, Cam. She actually kissed the bed, kissed the wood. It just blew me away. And if that wasn't enough, just to melt your heart, as I'm sitting on this bed with her, I look up and here's Haley's mom, single mom, 6 years of tears pouring down this lady's face. And, I was raised by a single mom too. So I knew what every single one of those tears meant. That's right. And the meaning behind it, and the frustration and the guilt and the worry that this lady was now hopefully releasing, right? It was just almost overwhelming. And I knew right then, I thought to myself, you know what? This is like way more than just a bed. This is way more than just providing a kid with a good night's sleep, And that's what we do. When you think about it, and I tell everybody, listen.
That was one of them tiny moments.
That's one of those tiny moments.
Yeah, I got these bricks behind me because I'm real big on brick by brick. It all adds up, right?
Cool.
And that's one of those bricks. That's one of those tiny moments of those bricks of just cornerstone moments in life that other people go, "Oh, so what, a bed?" No. You felt that, and you can't. We can describe it. You could have some of the best authors in here articulating the words, but you know it when you see it, and it mattered. And it was
well. Thank you for saying that. And I tell Cam, listen, you're right. I can talk to you all I want. I can show you videos. I can show you pictures, but until you're in the room, right? And I tell people, listen, like when you go in the room and there's little Johnny, hiding behind mom because there's these strange people in their room making all sorts of racket. And you watch them, and as soon as they realize that it's a bed, this is their very first bed, oftentimes their very first bed. They come out from behind mom, their apprehension turns to appreciation, which then turns to excitement. And they start hugging people that they would maybe a little worried about. And all of a sudden, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they crawl into a bed and fall asleep because they've never had one. And I'm sitting on this couch, or this bed rather, with Haley and looking at mom and just taking in the moment. I didn't have a choice. It like a waterfall just filled in. And, and I tell everybody, listen, I'm glad you brought this up because some people might, well, it's just a bed. Trust me, I said the same thing. It's just a bed. I was excited and it was fun to do that. But in that moment, I paused, and I want everybody just to pause for a second. Like put down your coffee or your book or pause the TV, whatever. Just think for a second. What would it be like to sleep on the floor at 6 years old, day in and day out? Right? Let's think about it just physically at first. They're going to wake up and they don't get a good night's sleep, right? They're going to wake up sore and stiff day after day, right? So when they go to school, they're always in a very difficult mood. I mean, they call it waking up on the wrong side of the bed for a reason. In this case, these kids are waking up on the wrong side of whatever. I mean, right. Who knows, right? So they're not in a good mood, which they're not going to make good friends, if any friends, in those types of moods, right? And of course, they're not ready to learn. You could ask a teacher; they're pretty accurate in pinpointing some of these students out because their behavior's bad, right? And they usually get pretty bad grades.
They tired.
Yeah,
right.
And that's the physical side. Now take the emotional and the psychological side. These kids can't have sleepovers. The other kids aren't coming to their room. They're embarrassed, and then they go to their friend's house, stay in their room. Not only do they have a freaking bed, they got 10 throw pillows. Right? The contrast between the two. I can't help but think of a child looking at that and wondering, well, my friend Sammy over here, someone really loves him. Look at all the things he has. I don't have that. I mean, who knows what goes through these heads? I just know it's not great.
You feel less than.
You feel less than. Yeah. And I had a friend of mine actually make me aware of this later on. Him and his sister grew up in a pretty rough home, right? There's a lot of abuse and shouting and fighting and physical abuse, right? And when it got really bad, he told me, he says, it's funny you call it SHP, is an acronym for sleep and heavenly peace. He says, because when that got bad in our house, me and my sister say, it's time to go to our secret hiding place. And they literally called it their SHP, which was their bed. And think about you and I, when we have a bad day at work or, trouble with our spouse or for heaven's sakes, if we get sick, if we have the flu, where is the one place on the frickin' planet that you and I want to go? Everybody wants to go to their bed. Crawl into their sanctuary.
That's what the K-pop Demon Hunter said. They said, bed,
yeah.
couch, couch, bed.
Yeah, they want to go to their bed.
One of your life is spent there.
Yeah, 100%. And, I travel all over the country giving speeches and whatnot. And, I still haven't had slept in a bed that I would rather sleep in than my own. And that goes to show you.
Especially as we get older.
Yeah, especially as we get older. And it goes to show you, it really doesn't have so much with comfort and softness and all that. It's because it's our sanctuary. It's our safety zone. These kids don't have that. So physically, mentally, emotionally, socially, all these kids are getting affected. In fact, I had a chapter president. This is early on. We just became a nonprofit. And a couple of years later, we started growing, starting adding chapters because people saw what we were doing. Right? They saw us delivering beds. They wanted to help. The more beds we delivered, the more kids we found, the more kids we heard about and let us know. Just the problem grew. This thing called bedlessness just unveiled itself to me. Well, we had a chapter president. He worked in the juvenile detention center as a guard and a counselor, if you will. And they get these kids in groups, right? And they talk and stuff. Well, he didn't know about child bedlessness until he became a chapter president. And he said, it's interesting, Luke, I went in there during one of these group sessions, and he said, and I can't remember how many kids were there, 10, 20, something like that. And he said, I went around and asked the question, how many of you kids in here grew up without a bed, like a bed of your own? Now, this is not a national statistics. This is just his experience from one situation in one juvenile center and one group. But he said it was over 85%. Now, I can't help but think that's probably a pretty accurate number somewhere, even if it's 10%, whatever. That tells you something. That tells you that these kids have a hard, and they don't have the same leg up that everybody else does.
No,
and I know
it may not be a direct causation, but
correct.
Let's be honest, it's a correlation because they grow up in insecure lifestyles, and that leads to insecurity and a lack of sense of safety and a lack of sense of security. Oh, that's right. If you have a lack of safety and a lack of security in your situation, that could be traumatic. Fill in the blank on the other things that may have causated. And these things may not be direct causation, but there's for sure a correlation with that.
100%. I mean, they're all pieces to the puzzle, right?
Right,
And how big are the pieces? I don't really think it matters, especially when we know that there's something we can do about it. At least now, and so after little Haley, we were driving home. It was just me and my buddy Jordan, and we were so overcome with emotion, and I was speechless, right? But I do remember thinking two things. The first thing I thought of was like, I'm a big, strong kid from Idaho. I love hunting. I love fishing. I love football. I love sports. My Saturdays was college football and all this stuff, right? And in an instant, all that stuff that I loved doing, I just lived for 30 years, didn't matter anymore. I mean, just a spark, or I should say a lightning bolt just hit me. It didn't really matter to me anymore. And I thought, you know what? I spent a couple hours a night for 3 nights with my kids building a bed to solve that problem. Yeah, that's well worth my time.
Yeah, that's right.
And so when I got home, I'd look over to my buddy and I said, you know what, Jordan, no kid's going to sleep on the floor in my town if I have anything to do with it, right? And so we started building beds. And that first season, we built 21 beds for the kids in my community and delivered them before Santa Claus, which was super fun, right? Especially when you learn that most of these kids, that was the only present they were going to get that year. Which is unfortunate,
And it's so profound because what you're giving them. So I've worked with a lot of charitable organizations and like materialism. Like I never grew up able to have materials long enough to be able to get materialistic. I went through a phase when I was a young Marine and I was baller. I got some rims on my car, but that was the extent of it. But I think what I'm trying to convey here is there's so many charitable operations. Give kids toys and all this kind of stuff, and it's like a toy's only going to do so much. That kid's still going back to a not stable life. And that's what my mind would be at. Like, yeah, you get like a little thing that's going to be the old news in a clearance rack. And sadly, some places actually go and sell the things, on Facebook or whatever. And I'm like, come on, man. A bed would have made such a greater impact of a sense of security, a sense of just safety and real rest, opposed to a little Tykes car or something. Like, I mean, it's great. I'm not dissing anyone's intentions.
It's needed.
But it's not necessarily a need, right? Like you're giving
True.
them.
Good point.
You're satisfying a need, and it's necessary to make people feel good. But like, how about the effort being put towards things like what you're talking about? And that's not to compare and contrast all of it. It's always a thought to me when I've done certain things and I've worked with certain organizations, and you hand out toys and it's like it looks good, it's great for a picture, but like what happens at, like I always think about the then what and those 3 ellipsis dots, like you get on a message and you're like, what are they gonna say? Like the then what? Well, your situation is then what? A child has a place of refuge, a place of safety, a place of rest, which is, we already know in our culture, it's totally underused and underprescribed, which is sleep. Good quality.
Well, Cam,
sleep.
and the real scary thing was, food, clothing, shelter. Those are the 3 big, right? Those are the things you got to focus in on. Those are obviously the things, and there's a lot of organizations that help with that and do that and stuff like that. A bed is a luxury for some of these families, which shouldn't be that way, right? So put yourself in my shoes. Here it's 2012, 2013. We're doing this Christmas project. That's all this ever started out to be, was just a Christmas project.
That's
right?
why you said the season, all right? Because I thought you were really all about football for a second there. I was like, during the college football, after the college football playoff, we don't do this no more.
We're done.
I want to listen to Paul Feinbaum talk about stuff.
That's right.
No. During the Christmas season, I got it. Okay.
Well, and it's Christmas, and that's where the name came from, Sleep in Heavenly Peace, right? It's all the hymn we all know, and it represented exactly what we want these kids to do is sleep in heavenly peace, right? And also, although we're not necessarily associated with any specific religion, right? I think a majority of us obviously are Christian based, but we all know, everybody knows that song's about a certain child. And it's a symbol of a certain child that didn't have a bed either, right? And so it just really fit, what we wanted to convey.
Yes. I'm
you feeling me there?
I'm picturing it all.
Trust me, the first I shouldn't say this, but the first
emotion. Please, First Amendment's in full effect. Say what you want, sir.
The first name was not Sleep in Heavenly Peace. So when we started getting, doing more of these, my wife at the time was like, well, you probably should name this. It's not Luke's project or whatever. And I'm like, don't worry. I got the perfect name. Beds for Babes.
Down.
No. See, Cam, you get it. You get it. First, you're like, hey, that makes sense. And then the more you say it, and I think it's the first time I said it out loud, I was like, hey, that doesn't sound good.
One day when y'all get bigger than you are right now, because again, look at that sleeping. Look, www.shpbeds.org. But one day y'all need to get Will Ferrell to come in there and do the reenactment of Talladega Nights and be like, I just want to give baby Jesus a bed, and everybody, boom.
Oh, you know. I have a funny story about him too. I met him one time. Anyways, a long story short, but yeah. My wife's like, no, we're not going to call it that. How about Sleep in Heavenly Peace?
Could go bad.
Yeah, that makes sense. But it was kind of, one thing happened too is as we started building more and delivering more and sharing more on Facebook and stuff like that. And we, now people wanted to donate money to us, and we were like, sweet, because I can't finance as much as I want to, and because I'm learning this child bedlessness thing is major issue. Like, what's going on? So let's be a nonprofit. So I learned, I didn't know what that meant. I mean, I've never ran a nonprofit before in my life. But I'm entrepreneurial. I've started a bunch of businesses. Yeah, sure. We'll figure it out. So like anybody, you go to the internet and try to find a nonprofit that's doing this and kind of copy them or see how they're doing it and blah, blah, blah. Damn, I looked everywhere. And I only found one charity in the entire country that was providing beds for kids. One. And it was in Charlotte, and it was called Beds for Kids. It was kind of a cool name. And I'm like, whoa. So that was shocker number one. And then shocker number two was, because we were sharing locally what we're doing, and got more volunteers coming and more beds coming in, and more kids coming in for needing beds and blah blah blah. All of a sudden, I start getting calls from this thing called CASA. These agencies, CPS, foster care, all these organizations that were helping transitioning homelessness and foster care and kids and families and blah blah blah. And I was like their favorite guy. Like, they didn't know me from Adam, but I became the bed build guy, right? And it got out, and I was their favorite guy, and I found out why, and it's because these agencies told me a bed for a child most of the time is the single hardest thing for these agencies to provide, which blew me away. I'm like, over a couch or even a car or a refrigerator. I mean, that was the single hardest thing for them to find, and come to find out, they kind of correlated because there wasn't anybody doing it. There wasn't a charity providing it. So yeah, you could get food, clothing, shelter. You could get toys. You could get bikes. You could get the list is endless. You would think a bed for a child. And the reason why is because nobody knows that this is a problem. Even we kid, child. In fact, Mike Rowe coined this for me. He said, child bedlessness is not a real word, but a real problem. And he's exactly right. That's good, huh? And I in fact, I just realized this not too long ago, but even the word bedlessness, it's not a real, it doesn't even know it exists. And that's reality. That's why I wanted to come on your show, Cam. It's because I wanted to share the story, my story, for the sole purpose to let people know that child bedlessness not only exists, right? The statistics that we have, which we're the largest bed building charity in the world now, which sounds huge, but it's just because mostly there's not a lot of charities that do it, right? Yeah. Although we do build a lot. We build 90,000 beds a year. But
90,000 beds. Wow, that's great. That's a big number.
Yeah, it's a big number, which is a sad number. And the saddest part about that number, well, the statistics are greater. It's greater than 3% of the total population of the town you live in, on average anyways. So if you live in a town of 100,000 people, there's 3,000 kids sleeping on the floor, right? And as you and I talk right now, as you guys out there are listening, there's 160,000 kids on our waiting list right now. And the sad reality of that is that we only cover about 27% of the United States. That's only so there's 70% out there. The number 160,000 is large anyways, but that's still with 70% not even knowing that we exist. So it's way, way greater than that. On average, it's 3 times that, right? And so we sit here talking about child bedlessness, and when I was doing what I was doing, and I'd share what I was doing, through the history of SHP with someone, I usually got 2 questions. The first one was, well, yeah, it's not that big of a deal, right? It's not that massive. And I used to say, well, it seems like it is. And no, now I can tell you it absolutely is. It's a pandemic, epidemic, whatever you want to call it, that is happening right under everybody's nose and no one knows about it. And then the second question I would get was, well, yeah, but not in my town. I live in a pretty, affluential and rich town. I'm like, oh no, it is right next door. We have a chapter in Pinehurst, South Carolina, which is like the capital of all the PGA tours. I mean, it's like the richest county in the country. We have a chapter there. And so child bedlessness doesn't know economics. It doesn't know culture, geography, race, religion. It doesn't know any of that. It just knows freaking hardship. It knows hard times. You can take a family that has been doing just fine. House fire, gone. Dad loses his job, gone, right? Or parents die. That happens, or mom has 10 minutes to grab a garbage bag and whatever she can with her kids and jump in a car and take off.
Yeah. Yeah, when them sheriff's departments say 72 hours, they're coming. Them evictions go quick, and that's sometimes all people have is trash bags to move.
Yeah, either eviction or escaping an abusive situation or something. Yeah, I mean, right. Guys, these are absolutely real. And I live in a pretty sheltered world. I live in a small, farm town community in Idaho. So this was all a big shock to me, right? And now I see it every day. We deal with it every day. And the sad reality too, Cam, is, these kids are in these situations not because of any of their choices.
Not their choices. That's right.
It's like, trust me, I get all the other agencies, I get all the other organizations that help people with whatever problems they have, right? And it's very easy to sit there and, well, yeah, they got in this situation because they made poor choice, and that's probably true. In some cases, that's probably true.
What they do?
Nothing.
What do they do? Exactly right.
There is absolutely no situation that a kid has got himself into sleeping at home without a bed, right? And even with the parents, again, you can, some of it's not even their fault. They lose their job or their house fire or something like that. It's just an ugly, ugly thing. And child bedlessness, now that you know about it, right? And now I'm going to share with you how you can be involved, how you can help your own. I
wanted to ask that because I really I got a lot of great listeners out there. I love all of y'all. I know all of y'all don't like me, but I love all of y'all. But here's going to be some knowing's not enough, but we must apply. Bruce Lee 101. Here's how you can do something. Please.
That's right.
Thank you, sir.
So our website, shpbeds.org, right? It's different than some that you may have seen. The reason why is because when you go to shpbeds.org, you're not going to come to some big national website, right? What's going to happen? Because, and we did this on purpose, it's going to bring up the local chapter, the closest chapter to you, because I want you to see what's going on in your own hometown. I want you to see how many kids are sleeping on the floor. Keep in mind, there's a good chance that less than, or I should say greater than 70% don't even know about this. So if that number's there, trust me, it's way higher.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
And so you're going to see those kids. You're going to see that chapter's activity, how many beds that they built. You're going to see a way to donate money. I mean, we're a nonprofit. That's how it does. Greater than 90% of your donation stays in that chapter to build beds, right? I mean, I got to turn on the lights, right? I got to pay for insurances. Some way I got to do that, right? We're a business as well, but yeah, you got to. But 90% stays there. So when you donate it, it stays there. When you donate sheets, twin size sheets and pillows and stuff like that, it stays in the chapter. You can learn how to volunteer. Become a chapter president or at least a core team member. Build beds. That's how we do it. We take raw lumber from our Lowe's, usually is our national sponsor, and we bring tools. We bring raw lumber. We show up in a parking lot and kind of like an assembly line. We take 2x4s, 2x6, and at the end of the assembly line, 3 hours later, there'll be 30 beds. And you as the volunteer, you as the member of the community, actually build them. Right? We don't build them. We know how. We got the tools. But we want you to. Because this, I knew a long time ago, Cam, this problem, especially as big as I started to realize it wasn't going to be solved by some farm kid from Idaho. Right? This is going to be solved by a community. It's going to be solved by the people in the community, right? And so we're a national organization. We're international. We're in 4 countries. But that doesn't matter. What matters is what's going on in your town. I'm going to make it as easy as possible for you to donate, for you to be involved, to start a chapter. If you open that shpbeds.org and there's no chapter there, you can start one. I mean, we have people that are full-time jobs, full-time employees, military, National Guard. They're coming in. They start chapters. We got people. Probably most of our chapters presidents are retirees. You know, these elderly couples that want to give back. They spent their whole life working, and now they want to give back. I mean, it's just a beautiful thing. And the cool thing is, guys, no one gives two you-know-whats, whether you're religious, not religious, political, not political. That doesn't matter.
Many hands make light work.
That's right.
You just in there together making it. And I'm the dummy, so I'm glad you said it, that I can work on the assembly line. 'Cause I might park the truck or I might like pull back, but like I can pass the wood down because I ain't good at fixing stuff and stuff like that. So it's like just anybody out there, you ain't got to be, you ain't got to be a carpenter, okay? You could just be part of it. Or maybe your organization is wanting to do something for said season, and you might want to get everybody together to work on something that's a tangible, healthy thing to do together that can actually impact people. So I'll be down there passing wood, if anything. And
Amen, brother.
Looking for Mike Rowe and Will Ferrell to show up. I don't know.
There you go.
I cut you off, but I wanted to plug that.
Well, you're fine.
Like, I ain't no carpenter. Me neither. So
you know what's funny is that's the beauty about it. I mean, I made this process, and it's refined since 14 years ago, but we made this process simple because we want people of all walks of life and knowledges and experiences. It doesn't matter. We want you to come and feel the joy of service. Feel the joy. I always said, if you want true joy in your life, everybody, listen. You got to stop thinking about yourself and see how you can help someone else out. Your problems, they don't go away. Of course not, right? But I promise you they're going to feel far less heavy than you really think they are, right? And so the process of building beds with us and delivering beds, they're two different feelings, right? But they're very simple. No experience is necessary. I had one banking group, bunch of girls, the tellers and all that, the bankers. They wanted to build beds at during like lunch or something. It's kind of a weird thing. Like can we come over at lunch and build beds? I'm like, yeah, sure, come on over. Dude, these ladies showed up in not dresses, but pantsuits and stilettos, and I'm like, you're gonna get sawdusty. Okay, here we go. Dude, I let those girls go to town. They built like 20 headboards in like 20 minutes. I was like, whoa, you guys are going too fast. I mean, but that's how we make it, and I learned something here. And if I can share my Hank story with you, Cam. So when this is probably 2016, 17, something like that, we had just got this rundown warehouse donated by some amazing people. And I wanted to do a build, my first public build in this warehouse. So I broadcasted it on like the newspaper and whatnot, and we got a lot of people that showed up. Well, in walked this guy named Hank, and Hank was like 700 years old. I mean, this guy. I was like, dude, don't die on me, okay?
I just want to help y'all.
Yeah, that's right. He's gonna walk in. But he had that grandpa smile, just the ones where you just loved him the minute he walked in.
Just sucking on a Werther's or something.
I'm sure he got 3 or 4 in his pocket. Trust me. with those those root beer barrels, right? We've all got it. Oh yeah. And so he comes up to me and he says, "Hey, you the guy?" And I'm like, "Sure, yeah." And he says, "Where do you need me?" And I remember first thinking, well, first I don't need you to die. That's what I don't need to do, right? I said, that's right. I said, so, Hank, what did you do for a living? And he's like, well, I was a carpenter for 40 years. I'm like, I know exactly where you're going, right? If there's one part of the train that we call it, the assembly line that you can't screw up, and or could and cause a problem, would be cutting the wood, right? You got to cut it right. And so, unfortunately, the cut station's at the very beginning of the train, obviously, which is the furthest away from the fire pit. This is January, Idaho, in a very low-heated warehouse, right? Not the most comfortable place on the planet. So I put them over there, and, it didn't take long. I showed them a couple of cuts of what we do and how we do it. And, 40 years, the guy, probably could teach me a few things in 5 minutes. So I let him go. Well, when you're running a build and you're the only guy that really knows how to do it, and there's 60, 70 people there, some of which have never touched a drill in their life, you get called on quite a bit, right? And so I'm running around with like a chicken with my head cut off, just answering questions and solving problems and teaching this and doing that. Well, 4 hours go by, and I forgot about Hank. I'm like, oh, shoot. Where's Hank? Are you still with me?
Hank going rogue.
Yeah. So I go back there to the beginning of the train, and he was there, and he was just covered in sawdust. I mean, head to toe. His clothes were as white as his hair. And I said, I was like, Hank, I am so sorry. Like I didn't forget about you. I was just busy and blah, blah, blah. And he kind of turned real slow to me and wiped off the sawdust on his face. And it gave me this really serious look. And I'm like, oh, crap, here it comes, right? He says, Luke, he's like, I've spent my entire life helping. I've been to events before my entire life. He says, never have I shown up to an event in less than 5 minutes. I was put on a job. I had an assignment. I couldn't leave. I didn't have a choice. People were waiting on me. I couldn't go to the bathroom. I couldn't grab water. And I'm sitting there going,
sorry, Hank.
Sorry, dude. Seriously, I could have come back. And he says, no. He said, thank you. And it took me back. I was like, and it just dawns on me. And every nonprofit out there, listen, this is gold. And this is what I learned. I wish I would have learned sooner. But when you're a volunteer, you want to feel like you actually meant something to be there, yes, right? Yes. You actually contributed. That's where the volunteer experience is the most critical. It's not making it easy for them. It's not making light work for them, right? Building beds, hauling wood around, cutting wood, lifting up 2x4 by 10s, not easy physical work. Right, we have a saying called post bod build for a reason, right? Because you feel it, right? Yeah. Hank, like all our volunteers there, took the time during a cold Saturday morning of his day, rather than doing whatever else he wanted to do. He showed up to volunteer. He wanted to have the experience, knowing that he mattered. That what he did mattered, and that's exactly what happened, right? And so I learned right then, and we have a saying in SHP. The happiest volunteer is the sweatiest and the dustiest. And that is so true, because we want people to feel. I wanted to, and I was robbing my volunteers of this experience, the same feeling I was getting energized by. I was robbing it from them the more I took responsibility away from them, right? And so, I learned that lesson. And that's why we make this bed build process not as efficient and as fast as we possibly can, because one of the points and one of the byproducts of building beds for kids I learned was there are millions of people out there in our communities that want to give back. They just don't know how, right?
Yes.
And they want to have that feeling. They don't want to just push a broom or push a button, right? They want sweat. They want their fingers on it. They want to feel like they're giving back. That's what we provide. And I found out that because of that, right? And this is why I organized it the way I did, is because there's groups all over, whether they're church groups, Lions groups, Rotary Club, whatever, Knights of Columbus. There are organizations, Christmas parties, or just social get-togethers, team building exercises. There's all of these opportunities, these events that people are looking for this exact reason. That's right. To give back, to feel fulfilled, for team building exercise. We check all of those boxes.
That's right. And you're doing something that matters.
And
there's
it's
connection, there's meaning, there's mattering.
Yep.
That is engagement, and meaningful engagement, not just standing there and be like, what do I do next? You're like, I volunteered, but I stood at the stand. And that's not no diss. There's great intentions, but a lot of times so much, it's just like the thing you said earlier. People want to make changes in their lives, but how, where, what's the action? Well, people want to give back more than we think they do. It's just to what, to where? Oh, that right there, that's not a good cause. Or this right here, I don't know if I could do that. This right here, you could do, and it's tangible, and it, you could learn. And if you don't know, somebody else is going to show you.
And the biggest thing too, Cam, it's fulfilling.
Fulfillment.
Right?
Yes.
It's fulfillment. It gives that's where I sat on the couch I'm content. Like it's fine. Like life is fine. I don't have.
You can also stagnate.
And that's the problem with fine, is it does feel like stagnation, fine. Right? Yeah, it's fine. Like I don't want to be fine. No. Your listeners don't want to be fine, right? Live. We want to live. We want to be involved. We want to feel. We want to know that we matter and what we do matters, and we can make a difference in not just our lives. You know, I tell people, listen, don't worry about changing the world. Just worry about changing someone's world, right? Even a little bit.
Yeah,
and that's what
it's usually, like you said, right next door or right down the street. It's not that far in this case, but that's just in general. Like, oh, I don't know my purpose. Look around. There's somewhere where you can help in life. I promise.
There is, and don't be afraid to jump in and help. You know, some of the best byproducts of volunteering for charity, period, but with Sleep in Heavenly Peace, you know, because it's all I know. Is you make friends. You know, you make friends with people that you would otherwise have passed in the grocery store and not said a word to, right? Now these people, I mean, Sleep in Heavenly Peace has brought meaning to people. It's saved their marriages. It's brought people out of addiction and alcoholism. It's brought kids closer to their mom and dads that have struggled and had strained relationships. It's giving people meaning. And I think it gives people the opportunity to stop thinking about their own problems and themselves and seeing when you think about helping other people, you know, it puts life in a little bit different perspective for you, right? And we all need that from time to time.
God, we do.
And so you know, Cam, I know we're probably going to wrap up here, but I will say, if there's one thing I can ask your audience to do, again, just open your mouth. If you can't donate, if you can't volunteer your time, you don't want to start a chapter, you know, whatever, that's fine. There's seasons of life. I get that. But there's no not season to open your mouth, to share what you hear. My buddy and I, this is like year number 2, like, so 2013, it was just during the summer, you know, because we only built during Christmas back then, right? We were talking about the project, talking about how excited we were. We're going to build beds and do this. And we were talking about delivering them and what we experienced and all this. And this is at lunchtime in some busy restaurant. Well, the next thing I know, I look over and there's this lady standing at our booth, you know, and I'm kind of looking at her going, yeah, can I help you? You know? And she says, you know, I have to apologize. I just listened to your entire conversation. And she goes, here's all the money in my wallet.
Wow.
And I teared up. I'm like, I still tear up. I mean, it was right then I was like, wow, I think we're on to something here. That I think there's people that feel the same way we do, that can have the same passion for something as detrimental as child bedlessness, right? Mm-hmm. And so you out there, listen, when you talk to people about what you hear, when you share this podcast on your social medias or share it with your friends, you just never know. You might find that family that doesn't know this exists, that has 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 kids sleeping on the floor, right? Because you opened your mouth and someone overheard that, or you shared it with someone, or, you know, you go and buy 30 pillows because you're going to take it in and donate it to the SHP, and people ask you, why are you buying 30 pillows? I mean, you'll like this, Cam. I was sitting in a Delta Sky Club one time back when, I don't even know why I was there, but I look over, and this is like during COVID, so it wasn't a lot of travelers. It's probably why it was affordable back then, but I look over and I'm like, man, that looks like Rob Schneider. That looks like Rob Schneider, right? And no one was around him, right? And then he spoke, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's Rob Schneider. And Cam, I wasn't going to be one of those guys. I wasn't going to be one of those guys, right? I wanted to so bad. And me and my wife kind of, you know, we were gawking at him, and it just, wow, you know. And then all of a sudden I look down, I'm like, oh my gosh, we are going to be late for our flight. And I had some gout at the time. So if anybody out there knows what gout's like, you don't walk very fast. Needless to say, we missed our plane because we were gawking at freaking Rob Schneider.
You can do it.
Yeah. So we go back, and he's still there, and I'm like, fine, I'm going to be that guy.
Yeah.
So I went up to him, and I was like, hey, Mr. Schneider, don't mean to bother you. Because no one was around him. Like, no one knew who he was, right? I actually kind of felt bad for him. I said, hey, Mr. Schneider, you know, don't mean to interrupt. I just want to let you know how big of a fan I am. Dude, the guy stood up like I was his best friend. I mean, just the coolest guy. And he's like, hey, come get a picture with the blah, blah, blah. And then he says, so what do you do? And I'm like, gotcha.
Yeah. You never know, though.
Oh, dude, I whipped out a pamphlet, started talking about SHP and blah, blah, and I went and sat down after we were done. And I kind of watched him for a while, and he was going through my pamphlet. I mean, line by line, reading every little thing. Then he kind of looked up at me, and I was like, smiled. He stands up and walks over to me. And I'm like, what's going on, right? And he's like, Luke, you need to tell me more about this. And so I had a great chance to talk to him. Now, we're good friends. We talk quite a bit, and he's come out to some builds and delivered beds with me. Just a cool guy, and it just goes to show you, you never know what happens when you just open your mouth and share it with people.
So true. So true. Yeah,
so Cam, thanks for having me on, man. Seriously.
Thank you for being here. And I wanted to share this with you because the whole time during what you were just conveying and expressing in the organization of SHP, of sleep in heavenly peace.com org.
SHP.org. SHPbeds.org, sorry.
SHPbeds.org. Look, Dr. Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. I think that is such a powerful book for anyone out there that's searching for a purpose or meaning, or like, we will sacrifice and go through the most greatest suffering if there's a meaning behind it. And I think what a lot of us are lacking right now in our modern times, especially in our modern America, is a lack of authentic connections and a lack of feeling like they matter and a lack of purpose and meaning, right? And you can even be working for something. Trust me, I've been there, where you feel like this is for a great, but you can feel like a cog in the wheel. Listen to me. I ask groups when I do public speaking, I ask, who wants to be happy, who wants to be successful? And the whole room just raises their hands, right? This is what Viktor Frankl said. He said, for success like happiness cannot be pursued. It must ensue, and it only does so as the unintended side effect of one's personal dedication to a cause greater than oneself, or as the byproduct of one's surrender to a person other than oneself. Happiness must happen, and the same holds for success. You have to let it happen by not caring about it. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, what Luke is an example of, what your organization is an example of, your bride, your family, and all those, Rob Schneider, etc., everyone that's involved in this is unselfishness and service and dedication to something that's greater than them. So don't sit around and talk about how you want to be happy or successful. Get in the fight. Many hands make light work. You might not know. We all know, like, the what. We want to have service. We want to have meaning. We want to have success. We want to have happy. We want to have matter and all this stuff. Well, here's a how. Here's a tangible how of how you can give back and contribute to something that is meaningful and it's tangible. And for some people, I know, in those like me in recovery, it might give you a reason not to get totally obliterated Friday night, because you got to get up Saturday and go out there and make some beds. So there's that. All right, that was my plug, and that was my, because I'm a nerd and I read books, but Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning, I'm telling you, you can't just, happiness must happen. It doesn't just happen. You have to make it happen by doing something. All right, sorry.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. Like we said before, we can talk about, we can visionary and vision wise and hope and dream all we want to transform and have a better life and do. That desire is great to have, but your desire to change, to actually act on that thing, needs to be greater. So just work on that. That's as simple, as easy it is. Work on wanting to act. Find that can, and that often happens when you serve others. It often happens when you realize that light work, or many hands create light work. That's great. Well, start it. Start being those hands, right? Yes. You can be the good in your community. And you know what? You come and volunteer for SHP and you have a great experience. That might just be the catalyst that you're looking for to encourage you to go and do something else. I've had many people that have, donated their time to Sleep in Peace, have now come up to me and said, you know what? You inspired me to do. I had a buddy of mine that was a hunter, and now he wants to take, handicapped children hunting, because they probably have never had that opportunity.
That's beautiful, man.
It's beautiful. That's the spark, right? And it happened because he showed up and wanted to help, right? And I think that's where a lot of catalysts happen, is, it's taking some action. Man, I'll be more than happy to be a catalyst for anybody that wants to do good in the world and wants to change themselves, because, it's not, like I said, it's not just about child bedlessness. That's what I advocate for. But there's other ways to change the world, and you can do it.
You can, and you will. That's what we said in the Marine Corps. You can, and you will. But I always ask this question in closing to everyone. It's talking about lack of meaning, lack of purpose, and just, it's a pandemic, epidemic. We are losing too many people, and I'm tired of losing people, Luke. On the subject of death by suicide, to me, I feel like it's the only preventable way of death at the end of the day. We can't prevent car accidents all the time. We can't prevent cancer. We can't prevent a lot of things in our society. But I do think that death by suicide will never be perfect, but we can surely be better. If someone was out there right now, my friend, contemplating taking their life, and you had the opportunity to say anything to them, what would you say, my friend?
Oh, man. We all have emotions. right? We all deal with them. And if I can be personal with you, I've experienced this a couple of times within my own core family. I have a sister that struggles, right? And we've had some good talks, right? And to listen to her, right? She's so upset with herself because she has these feelings, Now listen, I'm not a therapist. I tell you I'm a farm kid from Idaho. But there's one thing that does ring true with everybody. We all have emotions. We all have feelings, and they're okay to have. They're just fine to have. Sometimes they're really strong. Sometimes they're not, right? Those feelings are okay to have, right? Just understand that they eventually go away, Amen. Right? Depression, we all want to strive to be happy, but we're not all happy, and we shouldn't always be happy. Because not. It's not healthy for us. We're human beings. We get angry. We get sad. We get frustrated. Those are feelings that our body has to release. It's okay to feel them. What's not okay is to feel like that's all you're going to feel. Again, this is just my perspective. When it's helped me, I'll say that, when I realize that I'm upset or I'm mad at my spouse or mad at my kids or upset at some at work or whatever it is, right? It helps me to pause and go, I just can't wait when this feeling's over, because it will be, right? Just the same as when we're super happy and everything's going great and you're sitting on the stage at CNN Heroes with, Bryan Cranston, interviewing you and Will Ferrell in the background. These are all great emotions and great feelings. They're going to go away, and that's okay. So, anybody out there, that's feeling like they're only one, right? Or this is just too much for me to overcome. Pause if you can, and I hope my words may ring true, as well as I'm sure thousands of other people that have told you. It'll pass.
Amen. I appreciate that so much. And look here, ladies and gentlemen, if you are that person out there suffering, wow, you have no idea who or what is coming down the road of life, and they need you. We need you. And you know what? You may need them, and you just can't see it right now. So as Luke said in the beginning, don't be afraid to ask for help. That's not weakness. That's strength. Luke, thank you so much for what you and your entire team is doing, man. We'll talk more about how I can best share information on how people can get in touch with you. I'll do the whole big blow up things where on the edit, I'm going to blow it up too again, but with the website and stuff like that. But hey, ladies and gentlemen, this is a credible organization doing great things out in our communities across, definitely in 4 different countries worldwide. I just want to say thank you for your service, for what y'all are doing, and it makes a difference. And thank you for being one that wants to make a difference and not just being another admirer of problems. We have a lot of that in our society, but actually being one to go, you know what? I want to be part of a solution. Might not fix everything, but I'm going to try to be part of a solution vice just stating problems. That takes a lot of courage. That takes a lot of leadership, and that takes a lot of unselfishness. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. And to everybody else out there listening, thank you all for tuning in. Please share this. Please let people know there are good people out there doing good things. And guess what? You can join them. That's right. Gentlemen, this has been another episode of the Real Resilience Talk Podcast, episode 79, 79er over. And thank you, Luke, for being here, man. Any last words that you want to share with anybody?
Hey, love y'all, man. We're all humans helping humans. Just there's little humans out there, and we can help them.
That's what I'm talking about. It takes a village. It takes a village. Much love to all of y'all. Thank y'all for tuning in. Somebody just called me on my mixtape phone. I'm out. Much love. Love y'all.